All right, President Trump taking off for Mar-a-Lago next hour, and he will fly through new clouds, metaphorically, hanging over the White House this morning as the questions mount over Trump campaign associates' ties to Russia.
Joining us now, David Gergen, CNN senior political analyst and former advisor to 4 presidents. Laura Coates is here, our legal analyst and a former federal prosecutor, as well as David Drucker, senior congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner and host of Examining Politics. Nice to have you all here. David Gergen, let me begin with you. So in Sessions' recusal as Attorney General on this matter, he went farther than the president even thought he needed to. President Trump tweeting this, calling this all a witch hunt, et cetera, et cetera. I can't help but find the irony in the man who said that the world should see President Obama's birth certificate just because, calling this a witch hunt. How do you see it?
I think the president would have been well advised to stop short of calling it a witch hunt, accept him and embrace the Jeff Sessions for calling for a recusal. That's the appropriate step. I think Attorney General did a wise thing. But I do think the White House has to go further than this. Smart White Houses in the past, when faced with these with a cloud of uncertainty and unpredictable facts coming out that they don't know about in a situation like this, what they've done is launch their own internal probe. Find where the bottom is. You can't do damage control until you know what the absolute worst charge is that can be made against you, and then you can prepare and go transparent. I would think that I don't think there's any reason. Sometimes the legal counsel of the White House says, well, we shouldn't do it our own probe because it's a criminal investigation. I don't think that's where they are now. I think they still could. They could call everybody in. We've had such a string of denials. The White House needs to be very aggressively in front of the story, not behind the story, and they need to be completely make sure there's complete transparency. That's the only way they're going to gain their credibility back. It would be good for the country, and frankly, it'd be good for their politics if they want to move on.
There really isn't much transparency at all. We keep learning about previously undisclosed meetings that happen. They may be benign meetings, but the fact is we didn't know they went on. Laura Coates, as for Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, he says he's going to provide a written statement, a revision of his testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Well, there are some on that committee who want more than that. They want him to come back and testify again before that committee. Can they compel him to do that?
Well, they could, and in fact, the reason they could do so is because he has essentially misled, either by a misstatement that was intentional or otherwise. But of course, it's very convenient now that you're the sitting Attorney General to now come and try to explain in kind of a retrospective way. It doesn't really hold a lot of credibility for people, and credibility is really the key here. There is an issue of proving intent when it comes to perjury. It's very difficult, but there is a bigger issue here about the credibility of the Justice Department. People have to understand that it works best, obviously, when you believe that objectivity is controlling the game. Here, we have the tip of the iceberg. We don't really know whether or not there was a wrongful discussion between the ambassador and Sessions. And even if it wasn't a wrongful discussion, we don't know if this is just the tip of the iceberg of an investigation that talks about a larger issue about campaign-related issues. And if that's the case, Sessions has to recuse himself down the line. And at that point, does he become a lame duck Attorney General who's simply a figurehead, or can he actually control the Justice Department? That's the credibility at issue, and the one that makes me the most uncomfortable.
So, David Drucker, overnight, what has also come out is a number of also previously undisclosed to the public or to anyone meetings between the Trump team and the Russian ambassador. To name them, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and General Flynn meeting with the Russian ambassador in December. 3 national security advisors to the Trump campaign, Carter Page, J.D. Gordon, Waleed Ferris, all meeting with the Russian ambassador at the RNC in July, just like Sessions did. But here's what the president said just 2 weeks ago.
I have nothing to do with Russia. To the best of my knowledge, no person that I deal with does.
No person that I deal with does. Now we know about all of these previously undisclosed meetings. This is a White House that constantly complains about what they call fake news.
Well,
is this
they can keep
news?
complaining, but it doesn't mean that it's fake news. Look, I don't think that it's necessarily out of bounds that a candidate for president, a Republican nominee, especially somebody who was not a part of the political process for very long, that some major players in the world would want to meet with him and people connected with him to try and figure out what he's about and what his administration might look like. The issue here gets back to the president's soft treatment, apologetic treatment of Russia and Vladimir Putin from the beginning of the campaign, and the fact that we know that Vladimir Putin sees Donald Trump, the president, as a fellow nationalist, and Putin and his sort of spy apparatus has always worked to boost nationalists in races in other countries, whether we're talking about France or Scotland or anywhere else. And that's why I think that the problem ultimately is not necessarily about the meetings, although if you're not disclosing a meeting and then it comes out, it looks funny. It's about the president's treatment of Russia and Russia policy when he doesn't afford any other U.S. adversary, and even a lot of our allies, the same deferential treatment.
And look, I mean, there's a Russia problem clearly, and that's a big issue that I think a lot of people want further investigated. But now there's this honesty problem because the president said that none of his associates, to the best of my knowledge, no person I deal with deals with Russia. Well, we now know they did. You know, Carter Page had said that he had no meetings with the Russians. Well, now we know he did, David Gergen. There are problems here with honesty, and they all may be benign meetings, but why not just own up to them then?
Yeah, they've given the appearance that they're hiding things, intentionally hiding things, and rather than trying to get to the bottom of it themselves, they're allowing this process to go on and compromising one individual after another within the administration, which just isn't very smart. You know, that's why they need to get in front of this. And I do agree with David Drucker that a piece of this is about why, and it goes back to why is Donald Trump being so solicitous sometimes of Vladimir Putin. When Putin had not only, but the bigger issue is that the Russian government intentionally invaded and tried to throw this election. They meddled in this election, and the question becomes: were these meetings, which are so unusual, meetings with a Russian ambassador during the middle of a campaign or even in the middle of a transit? They just don't happen like this. This is an extraordinarily abnormal situation, and so there's a serious question. If you're hiding things, what have you got to hide? Yeah. Why don't you put it all out there? Let us see what it is, and then let's move on if there's nothing there.
Right. Instead of the White House is saying there's nothing to see here, folks. You know, why even talking about this?
They're also saying that Jared Kushner and Flynn met with a lot of ambassadors during the transition.
I get that. That wasn't the only meeting.
No, it wasn't the only meeting, and we didn't know about those meetings.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's the issue.
All right, guys. Thank you. Have a great weekend. David Gergen, Laura Coates, David Drucker. We appreciate it.